9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, I think we are live. Hey, everybody, Josh Sigurdsson of World Alternative Media here. And of course, we are joined by Tim Picciott of the Liberty Advisor. There is some breaking news we will go into in a moment, but first make sure to hit that like button and check those links below. There's many options for you to help support independent media in these times, especially because the video we are about to do today will almost for sure be shadow banned and demonetized and possibly deleted from YouTube, as we've seen multiple videos lately just get deleted for daring to talk about this kind of stuff. Anyway, the news today, and it came out kind of yesterday, but it's really crazy and it's hard to really break through because it's so extensive. But if we can pull up the MSN article on the screen, as it says, nearly 25,000 email addresses and passwords allegedly from NIH, WHO, Gates Foundation, and others are dumped online. The next article here says from the Live Mint, did the data of WHO, Wuhan Institute of Virology, Gates Foundation get hacked? And finally, the article we are going to go into today, coming up right here from Zero Hedge, says, email addresses and passwords from WHO, NIH, Wuhan Lab, and Gates Foundation dumped on 4chan. And obviously, everyone's talking about this right now, and we will do our best to break this down to the best of our abilities. Obviously, we have to be careful because it is against the community guidelines on YouTube to actually go into a lot of this stuff. So we'll just keep it. We'll be as careful as we can without restricting the truth at all. But here, as this article says, a cache of nearly 25,000 email addresses and passwords allegedly belonging to the World Health Organization, WHO, National Institutes of Health, Wuhan Institute of Virology, Bill Gates Foundation, and several other groups involved with the coronavirus pandemic response were dumped on 4chan before appearing on several other websites, according to the site Intelligence Group. As it says here, the report by site based in Bethesda, MD, said the largest group of alleged emails and passwords was from the NIH, with 9,938 found on lists posted online. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had the second highest numbers with 6,857. The World Bank had 5,120. The list of WHO addresses and passwords totaled 2,732, according to the Washington Post. WHO Chief Information Officer Bernardo Mariano told Bloomberg that the organization wasn't hacked and that the data was possibly obtained through prior data breaches. Yes, there's a lot of confusion regarding whether this is even legit or not, and we'll go into that later. As it says, and I quote, the employees may have used their work email addresses to register an account for a particular website, and then that website has been hacked, leaking their passwords. According to Mariano, 400 of the credentials were still active, and he claims that none of the passwords were used to access sensitive information due to the organization's two-factor authentication system. 4chan users, on the other hand, said that they were able to use the passwords to gain access to a WHO website called Extranet, according to Bloomberg. Mariano added that the organization has been seeing an increasing number of attempted cyber intrusions since mid-March, and that there had recently been a sustained attempt to hack into the computers of 4 WHO employees in South Korea, along with the organization's Geneva headquarters. 4chan users said that they were using the credentials to download everything they could. An unverified photo posted as part of the dump appears to refer to splicing HIV into coronavirus, fueling speculation that COVID-19 was genetically engineered with HIV spike proteins, a theory posted by Indian researchers soon after the virus's genome was published and later withdrawn after findings were refuted. The Gates Foundation told Washington Post, "We are monitoring the situation in line with our data security practices. We don't currently have an indication of a data breach at the foundation. If legit, someone named Margaret at the Gates Foundation, last name withheld, is apparently a fan of the Dark Lord," as you can see there. Lucifer 13, great. Good job, Margaret. Australian cybersecurity expert Robert Potter said he was able to verify the WHO information and that their password security is appalling. And I quote, 48 people have a password as their password. or have password as their password, it says. He said, others use their own first names or change me. And it says here, Potter said the alleged email addresses and passwords may have been purchased from vendors on the dark web, a portion of the internet that is not indexed by most search engines, and were hacked, where hacked information often is posted for sale. He said the WHO credentials appear to have come from a hack in 2016. Now, jumping to the next article here, as it says from Fast Company, Gates Foundation, WHO hacks are part of a growing wave of attacks on science and health officials, and they blame mostly right-wing extremists. If you jump to the next article from Vice, this one's kind of funny. They say, neo-Nazis are spreading a list of emails and passwords for Gates Foundation and World Health Organization employees. Both organizations are the targets of absurd conspiracy theories among the far right. Among the far right, this isn't just about the right or the left, guys. This is actually bringing both collectivist paradigms together in order for people to say, look, I don't buy this. I want my job back. I am sick of being impoverished by the government. I'm sick of being forced into my home like a kennel. And, you know, this is just, it's so crazy how far the mainstream media will go to make it look like it's one buzzword or another. And to say that it's all far right conspiracy theories, look, fact. The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros, was one of the heads of the most violent communist party in the world out of Ethiopia. Fact. That's a fact. Bill Gates said about 2 weeks ago that the virus won't kill as many people as he thought. And as a matter of fact, the shutdowns will kill far more people. That's a fact. You don't need far right-wing crazy people or far left-wing crazy people to look at the truth. But we're not allowed to tell the truth right now because truth is treason in the empire of lies. And meanwhile, it's not just so-called conspiracy theorists talking here. If we go to the next article out of Zero Hedge here, as it says, Pompeo says multiple labs in China, not just Wuhan's, might be investigated for COVID-19 origins. So we'll go back to other articles shortly, but I want to talk about this a little bit, Tim. What on earth is happening here? We have, it's very hard to say whether or not any of this is real, any of this is actually legitimate. To say that we could go through all these emails, it's impossible. There's a lot of malware going around on the websites that claim to have this information. Twitter's shutting it down. YouTube's saying that it goes against the community guidelines to even talk about it. So we're risking a lot here. So make sure to send in those super chats and hit that like button, guys. But I mean, what do you think of what all these claims that the World Health Organization is saying basically that they are engineering, or they might have bioengineered a weapon or found out that it was a bioengineered weapon that was spread on purpose and it's spliced with HIV? I mean, were we talking about that in January?
Yeah, I mean, and then one of the other guys who is talking about that was actually the guy, I think one of the guys who first, discovered HIV, and I forgot his name, it's like Luc Pierre or something, and then he ended up saying that, it looks like there's 3 different insertions that were made into this, and then now you got, Pompeo saying, hey, just don't need to look at Wuhan, look at other places in China. And so, I mean, I've talked with people who've been in, high level, army, high level in the military, and they were telling me that they, people who are in like bioweapons, like research, like that's what they did, like not just like in the army. And they all told me that they all thought that this was a bioweapon, like 100% of the people in all different military branches of all different walks of life, of, Harvard doctors that I know. I mean, it doesn't matter who, almost every single doctor that I've talked to, who is, well versed in this is what they think. I mean, it's just pretty. Now, it doesn't mean that that's true, because a lot of times when everybody thinks one thing, it's usually the opposite. But however, this is going against what the mainstream media narrative is. But who knows what type of 4D chess might be at play? You have, I believe, Fauci, when he was the head of, I forgot whatever it is, like the whatever it is, AID, National Institute of Health and blah 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 blah. That they gave, what was it, like $3.5 million, I think, to. Right. To that institute in Wuhan. And so, I mean, so you could say that our tax money is being used to fund bioweapons that then get used against us.
Yeah, it's not even controvertible, Tim. I mean, at this point, it's a fact that the U.S. government gave $3.7 million to the Wuhan Institute of Virology to study coronavirus that was 96% similar to novel coronavirus in bats, going from 2015, 2018, and currently. And we're supposed to believe that that's a coincidence. These same bats that came from the Yan'an caves, where they claimed the bats that they ate at these wet markets came from. That's a coincidence. I mean, how who's a real conspiracy theorist here after all this?
Well, especially when they've been calling us, bat, crazy, and then now like the actual conspiracy, now the actual official theory is it came from a bat when those bats that they came from were like a thousand miles away from Wuhan, and there was a program where they were importing those bats to then do different types of things. And it's funny that now, I mean, like Alex Jones doesn't seem so crazy when he was talking about all these chimeras and all these things that were happening, and now you've got like the head of guy that discovered HIV, talking about how this is some sort of, engineered chimera. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, that's, at this point, if you're not paying attention, then, I don't know what's up. So.
Yeah. What can we say at this point? And, it's hard to really break down this recent hack, mostly because it's hard to tell which is real and which isn't, because one organization is saying that it's nonsense, it's not real. Other organizations are saying it's old info that was already hacked a long time ago and already released a long time ago. Other organizations like the World Health Organization and people that are experts, cybersecurity experts, are looking at the World Health Organization saying, actually, yeah, it looks like this is real. It's so confusing, but what I know is that there is more evidence than ever.
No.
Oh my God. You're gonna get in so much trouble. There is evidence that they bioengineered this illness, this virus, which we were saying months ago. Most people in independent media, except for a couple, were saying months ago. And it's important to point this out because, again, we were punished for talking about this. We were punished and taken down from different sites. Many people, Zero Hedge was taken down from Twitter for talking about this in an article, which now MSN.com, WashingtonPost.com, Pompeo himself are all saying. So at what point do we get any vindication here? I don't even want it, but the point is, like, at what point do they say, maybe the independent media is way more reliable because they're open-minded and don't have paid interests and stuff like that. Maybe they're better or more reliable to listen to when it comes to these things because they're not in a suit and tie sitting in some studio with millions of dollars from Rupert Murdoch or from Ted Turner or something. I mean, at what point do people realize, oh, wait, the media is tied in with Operation Mockingbird and the CIA and has been for years. And these guys are on YouTube losing all their money by doing this kind of stuff, but trying to provide a message. I wonder who has more benefit in telling the truth and telling lies. It really goes without saying. We have a lot of people writing in the super chats right now and in the chat box, and I really appreciate everyone tuning in. David Mancini says, I can't find these passwords to test them. Where were they posted? And here's the thing. I cannot tell you. It literally goes against the community guidelines here on YouTube. They've been changing it and manipulating it. And basically, they're taking down channels, taking down videos, giving us community guideline strikes for this kind of stuff. They took down one of my videos from like a week ago talking about economics and inflation as inappropriate content. It's never been more important for us to be careful as we try to move
if you go to the Tim and John Discord server, there was people that were posting screenshots of it in there, but mainly we're talking about financial economic geek stuff. So I saw all these screenshots. I'm like, hey, what's the deal with all this? I don't have time to research it. And someone then alluded to, hey, this is coming from the big hack that just happened. So if you guys do want to join that, I'll post that in a little bit. I just need to.
But we do have to be careful with a lot of the screenshots too, because it has been
exposed.
I'm
not going to post the screenshots. I'm just going to.
No, I know. I'm not saying that. I'm saying just the screenshots that have been put out there. We have to be careful with how real they actually are, because there have been examples of falsified screenshots taken from Reddit and 4chan that have been being spread around regarding these hacks that aren't actually from any of these emails. But it is interesting if we were to bounce back to that Zero Hedge article on this issue, Tim, looking at good old Margaret at the gatesfoundation.org and her username, Lucifer13. It reminds me of Hillary Clinton in that WikiLeaks hack where she said that she was sacrificing a chicken in her backyard to Moloch over a Guatemala deal.
Which one was that? Was that the
just a Zero Hedge article on the issue that I read earlier? It shows a screenshot of the emails from the Gates Foundation.
There we go.
And yes, Lucifer 13. Well, that's great, Margaret. Good job, Margaret. I do want to continue on here though, because as I was just reporting, Pompeo was saying that multiple labs in China and not just Wuhan's may be investigated for COVID-19 origins. And again, this lab, $3.7 million was taken from the US government to study coronavirus in bats. That's 96% similar to novel coronavirus. But even jumping onto the next article, we have Marina Abramovic. Now, Marina Abramovic, the Satanist that likes baby blood and urine and semen in her soup, she has been actually implicated in many theories on Reddit and 4chan regarding
with
this issue.
with John Podesta too. I mean,
of course, that too, yes. But she was friends with the Clintons and friends with Lady Gaga, all these people. And just did a commercial for Microsoft, which is great. But hey, look. So here's the thing. She was being implicated in this hack as well, according to some research that she was brought up in some of the emails. Again, we're talking about emails. I feel like it's 2016 all over again. But there's a lot of disputes on, again, the legitimacy of these emails. And as the Art News here says, Microsoft deletes Marina Abramovic advertisement after right-wing outcry over alleged Satanism. And she basically said, as what the original title of the article was, that she's sick of conspiracy theorists coming after her and attacking her. Well, I don't know, Marina. Maybe if you weren't drinking blood and hanging out with the president, that would not be such a big issue. But again, you're a Satanist who wrote creepy spirit cooking books with.
Now that video, I actually had it on my browser, and when Luke Radowski and I actually did a video on Marina Abramovich, and that got picked up by Breitbart. I think like 80,000 people ended up seeing it last time I checked. And what ended up happening is the second we get done filming that, all of a sudden the video, we see that it was pulled, but I actually still had it saved in my browser. So then I was actually able to then just save that entire video. So actually I do have the whole video saved, and we did a reaction to that. But then what they did is they spun that into, don't pay attention to what's actually in the emails. Not to mention it was probably, Seth Rich inside job of how they ended up getting those emails to begin with. Whole nother rabbit hole. We just need to blame this all on the Russians. No, never mind that the emails are like, oh, hey, is Maria coming over, and we're going to have some spirit cooking, and oh, by the way, we're going to take blood, urine, and semen.
What was
and
it, 200,000 hot dogs?
Yeah, and then then it was like even stuff that it was all coded. None of it made any sense. Like, oh, make sure you put the nacho sauce in the hot dogs, and we've got $1 million worth of hot dogs, and we're going to have these kids in the hot tub.
Yeah. There's so much code words that go back in the FBI playbooks for years. And I do want to mention regarding these emails and this hack that a lot of people are saying that there's a good chance that this was actually released by Microsoft, by World Health Organization, by all these organizations on purpose in order to, if you ever heard of a limited hangout, you'll understand this. So a limited hangout is essentially when you tell part of the truth, but not the entirety of the truth, in order to distract people from the entirety of the truth, and you let air out of the bubble before it pops, essentially. And it's a CIA term that goes back a long time. Now, what's interesting about this recent hack is that a lot of people are claiming that they are just releasing information to deter people from looking further into this cover-up. Basically their way of putting the information out, but doing it in a way that people will believe it because it's coming out through a leak rather than straight from them, because they know most people don't buy what they're saying. And that's one of the reasons I want to jump into the next article from Zero Hedge here, Tim, which I think is an important one to look at. Is don't tread on me. It says 74% of voters worried about losing freedoms due to COVID-19. 74% of voters. Now, first of all, 74% of voters are worried about losing freedom, but they're voters. But again, here's the issue. This is starting to really culminate in a very, very bad direction for the establishment, in the sense that we have a black and white. We have the black, which is, the creation of this massive global order, this power shift to China, this technocracy, the cashless society, the enforced vaccinations, the forcing people into homes, like into their kennels, taking ownership of their private property under the guise of paying their rent, even though most of it's just a loan. And by the way, the small business loans, half of them are going to hedge funds and stuff, declaring themselves small businesses. And then at the same time, you have the collapse of the global economy, which will kill far more people than anyone. Even Bill Gates agrees with that. And this is something that I think is really starting to culminate, because we're seeing people rise up all over the world right now, from China to the United States to Paris to Germany to Spain and all these places that for a good example of this, what we're witnessing right now is I'm in Mexico, and they shut down everything, and people aren't protesting because there's so many people that are just not listening. They're going out in the streets anyway. The rate here is really low. You could look at Sweden as well. Percentiles are pretty low. The numbers are really low. And people aren't buying it, and they're starting to stand up. And that tells you everything you need to know about which direction this is going in. And I did a video called This Is All a Lie about a week and a half ago now, where I talk about what's going to happen when people realize they've been lied to. What's going to happen when people realize they've lost their job, lost their business. The whole society has collapsed in on itself due to a socioeconomic crisis. And then you have these liars saying that the numbers are one way when you find out after the fact that the numbers were minuscule compared to what they said they would be at this point. What was it supposed to be? 200,000 deaths or 250,000 deaths by now? And it's not that I want that to have happened, but for the love of God, I mean, when you have such a low number compared to that, that should tell you everything you need to know.
Not even at the flu levels. We're not even at the flu levels, but okay, I get to waive my freedoms, but at least I've got my $1,200 fake Trump bucks. And so, it seems like everybody's willing to trade away their freedoms pretty cheaply, which now we see other articles saying that something like 84% of people now want more money from the government. And then I think there was another really good Zero Hedge article, not to shift right now, but it talked about how, essentially, why do we even pay taxes? And I'm not saying don't pay your taxes as a financial advisor because they're going to come nail me. But what I'm saying, but the point is, why do you pay taxes if deficits don't matter? And if they're trying to get inflation, the best way to get inflation would be to just not have us pay taxes, than using that extra productivity to then go into the real economy. But we don't have any real economy, and no better evidence of that than seeing 22 million people just going on unemployment, while the stock market just had the best week since like 1930s. So I mean, talk about a dichotomy of two worlds that we're living in right now, where the stock market and economy are not synonyms. They don't mean the same thing, but everything right now is being geared towards the stock market, but it's really being geared towards the bond market, which is a bigger actual problem than the stock market out there, which is why you saw, the huge rescue. And it's also very telling too, not to keep jumping around here, like here I got a fly in front of me too. I feel like Obama right now. So but what's really telling is that, we're going to, get this huge bailout for Wall Street right away. But, before we even figure out antibody tests or anything else, but, don't worry, Wall Street got taken care of. Oh, right. Yeah. Just a little oversight that, a Paycheck Protection Program ran out of money. I mean, I applied for one of these things weeks ago, and I didn't get any money from, as a small business. And I'm trying to in the process of trying to hire more people right now.
No, most of that money is for the
Shake
JFK,
Shack.
Shake Shack, the Kennedy Center, and hedge funds.
Yeah, and let's not forget now that you have, and Citadel, I believe, didn't take the money, but you have former Fed Chair Osama Ben Bernanke, who's now working at Citadel, who's then saying, oh, don't worry, this is not going to be a very big problem at all. This is just going to be like a snowstorm. But, essentially that job, we all know, was just a political payoff for...
I do want to mention just before we get in, because we're going to get into economics shortly here, but I want to talk about a little bit more about this hack, because it's interesting how it ties into everything with the connection with the U.S. government giving the $3.7 million to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And then on top of that, you factor in Event 201. And of course, Event 201 was put on by at Johns Hopkins Institute, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And it speculated an exercise, essentially, with a lot of the top players that are, at the top of the chain here with what we're seeing with the coronavirus. They were all, actors, businessmen, politicians, bankers, etc. They were all in on this exercise, Event 201, which was all about stopping a global pandemic that was coronavirus, and that would kill all these people, and then you come in with a vaccine and all that kind of stuff. Now, tying that into everything that's happening right now, you have ID 2020, which is something that, long before any of this happened. I remember last October at airports, I was walking around and I'd see this Real ID, and most of it's tied in with your driver's license and stuff like that. Most of you already have it. But to create a technocratic digital footprint for vaccinations and travel and health and, just even social credit, which I believe they're going to tie this into, like technocratic China, it's really concerning to me to see all this culminating at the same time. And then you see these hacks that seem to show that it was a bioweapon, just like we said all along. And go figure, we were right again. But again, this, I believe, was engineered to bring in or usher in a new form of technocracy. It's like the Patriot Act. It's not going to go away after 9/11. This isn't going to go away after the coronavirus. Just like we can go back to World War I, and the income tax didn't go away after World War I. It stuck. And here you have the vast majority of people's money being squandered and stolen and extorted from them. These things don't go away, and people just incrementally give away their freedoms like an incremental frog boil. And people don't even realize they've lost everything that's dear to humanity itself. And it will come down to that point. It's already has, but it's only going to get worse. And so when we have all this information coming out proving us correct in the funding of this Wuhan lab for a coronavirus study in bats that's 96% similar to the novel coronavirus, if that doesn't make people wonder what the hell is going on, I don't know what will. And people are waking up. People are starting to realize this, left or right. It doesn't matter. I'm meeting people everywhere in the world I'm going that are going, yeah, this is BS, complete nonsense. It's not that it doesn't exist, because the virus itself exists. It's just bioengineered. And again, it's a perfect power shift to a system like China. And you factor in Facebook, which is at the top of this COVID-19 stuff and propaganda. They're taking down posts, same with YouTube. And they are trying to unroll that social credit system. Mark Zuckerberg went to China years ago to work on facial recognition, and they enforced this with forced vaccinations and your social credit. Good luck, guys, getting anything done in your life. Good luck getting a house. Good luck going to a restaurant in the future. Good luck traveling anywhere. Good luck leaving your country.
Especially when they tie it into a digital dollar. Especially once they tie it into a digital dollar, which is already in another bill right now that Rashid Tlaib is already sponsored, and then they want to have your $2,000. Then now it's going to be a $2,000 a month type deal, and that $2,000 a month is going to be tied to a digital dollar. This is in the bill right now. This is not any speculation. And this is now, it was originally brought up during the Maxine Waters bill, then it was dropped in the Nancy Pelosi one, and now it's being brought back up. And don't worry, they're going to pay for it by they're going to mint $2 trillion coins. Those $2 trillion coins are then going to fund a 6-month program where anyone that makes under $130,000 a year then gets a payoff into their digital account. Then you have to then register probably your bank account. And this is also probably a sneak attack to then get access to everybody's bank account. And then once they have everybody tied into the grid, then they're going to start raising up the temperature gradually more and more and more and more until eventually people don't even realize that they've been enclosed all the way around, and they're going to be living in a complete technocracy. But we're just the crazy guys pointing this out.
We're insane, obviously. And I do want to mention some comments here, because some people are mentioning the reality of viruses and them being exosomes and them being solvent. And I recognize what viruses are. And again, viruses aren't alive, they're dead. But that doesn't mean they can't be bioengineered and spread. But nonetheless, when we're talking about a virus isn't a living thing. It's a dead thing that you more as a human being connect to as the parasite to the virus rather than the other way around. And like a computer virus, it's not that your body's attacking the virus, but your body starts attacking itself and killing itself. And it really weakens the immune system, and then also leaves you open to things like pneumonia and stuff like that. I know this well. I've had pneumonia many times as an asthmatic person. But again, I recognize the theories. I recognize the statements that many of you are making, and I believe them to be much of them to be true. But we have to be very careful about how we practically break down this issue, because it's not that it's not dangerous. It's that it is bioengineered, and that viruses can be deadly to humans. Again, it's not, there's no question about it. But again, I believe this is bioengineered and spread on purpose in order to enslave humanity. By the way, if you haven't already, hit that like button on this video. I really appreciate everyone joining us. Of course, check out our new newsletter at www.imband.com. You could also become a client of Tim Picciott at thelibertyadvisor.com. And we're going to get into economics right away with him. But first, we're going to go into a little bit more of this. Obviously, you can join us at our COINTREE account, which is now linked below, where you can send crypto and tip in crypto and many different cryptos, and find all of our social medias, including float.app, etc. Lycan Warrior sent $5 in the super chat and says, geez, at least make the hackers break a sweat. LOL. I really appreciate the super chats, guys. Goes a long way here at WAM, especially in these times where we are dooming ourselves by talking about this issue right now. Seriously, it's going to be the end of our channel, but it needs to be talked about because it's important, and it affects every single one of you watching. So obviously, we're not going to just sit back, and we have to report on it regardless of the terms of services and community guidelines. We're a news channel. I can't sleep at night if I'm not telling the truth. Safu Mafu sent $2.99 in the super chat and says, "Bat, you know what? Crazy. I can't say that word on air, only because AI catches it and immediately they'll shut down the super chats. I won't get any more super chats, and that's keeping me alive right now. But I really appreciate the super chat. Chester Wolf, the Griffin, always a good supporter here at WHAM, sent $10 in the super chat, says the government will do anything to silence the truth. People must be kept dumb. People must be kept in the dark. Look over here, not over there, nothing to see here, all that good stuff. I 100% agree. And that is exactly what we're dealing with today, is just this, it's deception mixed with faulty perception, which is based in propagandization and indoctrination coming out of the school system, out of the media, and out of this false sense of security surrounding the deadliest power in the world being government. You look like you wanted to say something there, Tim.
For a while, for a second there, you froze, and so I was going to jump in case people couldn't hear to not have any dead air. But then I stopped.
Well, and then there's some dead air. But I think that this is an issue of indoctrination and faulty perception, and I think that people need to snap out of this, because this has been going on since ancient Greece. This faulty sense of security based in order of, not responsibility, the basis of humanity and freedom itself, but collective responsibility, which is based in the ideas of tyranny enforced on the masses via a subservient group. But we're going to go into further stories here right away. If you're just tuning in, there have been there's been allegedly anyway, massive hacks on Bill Gates, the CDC, the NIH, the WHO, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and much more, that all seem to point to this virus being bioengineered in a lab, just like what we said way back when, going back to January. And we're called dangerous and terroristic for saying, including many saying that I should be arrested for talking about this. So that honestly, I'm not going to go into who I think wrote those comments, but I do believe that there's a lot of people out there that are very confused, and maybe they have grandparents and they're worried about their loved ones that are older, and I understand that. But look through the grapevine and search a little bit deeper than what CNN and the World Health Organization is telling you. World Health Organization was telling people telling National Guards in countries around the world to break into your home and split up your family. It's all on video at one of their recent meetings. And guess what? The National Guard in many countries started doing that. In the Philippines, they were killing innocent people on the streets for coughing and walking down the streets. People are getting tattled on by their neighbors for walking their dogs, and they're facing 1 year in prison in places like Maryland and Virginia while banning protests. Yeah, well, they're banning protests, and now they want to do this digital ID 2020. Show me your papers. I mean, how do you feel about being asked for your papers?
Yeah, it looks like Josh is freezing on us a little bit again right now. But I mean, we've seen where the COVID
park, Tim.
Yeah, you froze on us for a little bit there, so I was trying to keep it going. But we've also seen that COVID. I mean, it's, it can stand for what is it? Certificate of Vaccine Identification. Very very, very novel that it was changed from coronavirus to this COVID deal. But yeah, I think this whole thing is being used as a skeleton key. The original plan was they knew that there was an unsustainable amount of debt. I mean, Donald Trump called it a big, fat, ugly bubble in June of 2016. But now it's his big, fat, ugly bubble. And instead of coming in and telling the truth what was going on, he had to try to keep this going, which, he was stuck in a rock and a hard place. So, I mean, I understand the 4D chess of what he was trying to do. Again, I've been very critical on some things. And, some days people are like, oh, this guy's a right winger. The other day I'm a libtard. So, I mean, it just depends when you catch me. But anyone that's seen the totality of my work knows what's really going on here. But when it comes to everything was going to collapse, the original game plan was to have a war with Russia, blame things on the Russians. That ended up not working. And so then, I don't know what plan this was, plan, triple D or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's war in Syria, war in Iran, which we'll get into more in a moment, because that perpetuates. And now it just seems like a power shift towards China utilizing a pandemic and a global collapse.
Yeah, and so now they get to, they come in immediately, save the bond market. And so all the people that were speculators that own this company stock. And that was the major thing that I pointed out in my AnarchoVegas presentation. A major, major central tenet that I gave a lot of time to was the corporate investment grade bond market. That you guys can find that video on World Alternative Media, also find it on my channel as well. And what I talked about was half of the investment grade bonds were one notch away from junk. And what's going to happen, typically you're going to see about 26 to about 40% of those bonds get downgraded at least one notch, which what I was speculating at the time is this is February 11th, so it's not like I'm calling this after the fact. And what would then happen is that then there'd be forced selling in all these ETFs, because if you're no longer an investment grade and you're an investment grade bond fund, then you're going to have to be forced to sell. Then that forced selling would then get more forced selling, and it would create an absolute snowfall avalanche that there's no way you could stop. And now they're even buying the junk bonds. And so if you're buying a junk bond, you are buying something very risky. And so, why don't they come out and bail out the Bitcoin investors who bought it in at $20,000? I mean, they're buying, and guess what? Bitcoin didn't go to zero, but oil did. And so,
I want to get further into all these stories here right away, Tim. One of the things I was asking you before I froze was essentially, what do you think about, neighbors getting ratted out for walking their dogs and facing a year in prison in many places, and this ID 2020, show me your papers or else. And by the way, before you get to that, make sure to hit the like button on this video, guys, and share on social media so we can get around the shadow banning. But what do you think, Tim?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know what you asked me before, so I was just trying to wing it on something else to keep it going here. But yeah, I mean, what I make out with that is, I mean, this is something that the people who are turning in their neighbors now are probably the same people that be turning in, Anne Frank to, the Nazis back in the 1930s, and this is just terrible behavior that doesn't really shock me that's going on, and so I hope this does. But there's always positive. I mean, people now will see the not to say that it's all police or not make any generalizations about all of anybody. But by and large, who are the ones who are coming to arrest people? I would probably imagine it's probably the police. And so, and we're seeing crazy stuff where you see people out swimming in the middle of the oceans, taking walks in the park by themselves. And then luckily I'm out here in Arizona, so the police aren't too bad here, I guess, unless you're in Mesa. But in terms of what's going on now, they're not really doing anything. But maybe that's because people go to the Capitol with guns on them, and that's just something normal here. Whereas in a place like New York, where I'm originally from, that was definitely not the case, which is why they're able to bully people around. But New York especially New York City is a different test case all in and of itself. For all what I'm considered, just quarantine New York City, forever.
Tyranny on steroids, which they followed a lot of the model of London, England, going back way long ago. And many of you might remember the movie Terror Storm from, I believe, 2006 or 2008. I forget which one. It was the introduction of Paul Joseph Watson to the world on InfoWars. And it was actually a really brilliant documentary that really shut down the official narratives over a lot of the major attacks that we've seen throughout the world over time. And I do want to mention that this whole coronavirus thing with Event 201 and everything like that, I have been drawing the comparison quite often to a thing called Dark Winter, I believe it was called. And as I've read before, and you don't have to bring anything up on the screen, but I'll just read it. The leaders of two controversial pandemic simulations that took place just months before the coronavirus crisis, Event 201 and Crimson Contagion, share a common history. The 2001 biowarfare simulation, Dark Winter. Dark Winter not only predicted the 2001 anthrax attacks, but some of its participants had clear foreknowledge of those attacks, which is also a very interesting correlation. I do want to also mention that there was a WikiLeaks dump today as well, but there's not much information coming out on it, but it does have to do with quasi-satanic rituals of the international sororities based in Indiana, and stuff on Omar Khadr in Canada, and this aid to China and Russia in the past. It's nothing that I haven't gone deeply into it yet, but I did want to make you guys aware of it. So make sure to hit that like button. We're going to dive deep into all this a little bit more so, and make sure to share on social media to get around the shadow banning, and send in those super chats, guys. They are literally what's holding us up right now, and these videos risk our ability to make videos. Notice how there's not a lot of videos out there right now on this subject matter, and the reason for that being because it's against the community guidelines, but the truth must be told. We must be able to talk about this stuff. It's important you join us on the alternatives like float.app, that's flote.app. Join our new newsletter at www.iamband.com. It's all linked below in the description, as well as find us on COINTREE. I'm on COINTREE. It links you to a whole bunch of different things that I'm on, all the cryptocurrencies you can help donate to keep us alive, all the social medias we're on, etc. So we'll go into more of this stuff shortly, but I do want to get to another article here because this all seems to play into this massive power shift that we're witnessing today. As this Zero Hedge article says, top general slams Iran's malign behavior as Trump orders Navy to shoot down and destroy Iranian gunboats. So now we have the perpetuation of war, which again, it's really important to point this out. The monetary system needs a war. We are witnessing the greatest global collapse in the history of the world. It's a global depression. It's not just a recession, guys. We've been in a recession since 2008, papered over. This is far bigger than just a simple recession, which is funny because all the years we were in a recession, the politicians, the Keynesians, were all saying everything's great. It's never been better. And then now we enter into a massive global depression. They're like, oh, it's a minor recession. I mean, think of how behind these people are. They follow us up. They say everything we're saying, but like 10 years too late. So that says everything you need to know about that. And we'll go into that further in a bit. I do want to go into the next.
I just want to see if I could expand upon that comment that you made about saying that, because if someone was saying, oh, you said that we've been in a recession ever since 2008, and I do want to expand upon that. So what they do is they lie about all the numbers. Thank you, Trina, for the super chat. What they do is, let's say the inflation rate is really 5 or 6%, so we're not even saying anything crazy. And of course, over the past 10 years, at certain points, it probably definitely has been. Now the official one hasn't been, but now let's say the GDP is growing at 4, but the inflation is really 6. If you take 4 minus 6, you're at -2. That is the game. That is how they've manipulated all the data. Is they first have manipulated the inflation rate, which then ties into the other GDP data. Now, if you want to know how to you and your friends and your family members and especially people that are trying to fight you on this stuff, I wrote a book to try to dispel these rumors for Obama, and the entire book is basically lambasting Obama. But what it's doing is it's showing that how they rig these numbers. The book's called How It's Rigged: The Economy, and then to get that, if you text WAM, WAM, and then the number is 71441 to get an 18-page ebook called How It's Rigged: The Economy. But then also let's get into GDP. GDP going up isn't necessarily good. Like, okay, what if your healthcare costs double and GDP goes up? Is that great that you're paying more for healthcare? Or what if now your kids' college tuition goes up? And now I've seen reports of colleges that aren't even refunding any tuition, even though their kids, aren't even in school and getting, subpar online classes because, but this could be a good thing though. We can start realizing maybe we don't need to go to school. Maybe it's all a bunch of crap, or maybe, not to say that learning is bad. I mean, I've done way more learning outside of school than I ever did in school. And huge. And then, and also, I mean, it's great that, I did get into the toughest public school to get into in New York. So no one can say, oh, this guy's only saying this because, he couldn't hack it or he couldn't do anything in there. But the whole thing is propaganda. They're always just like the wars. They're always fighting the last war. So, here I am graduating right before everything collapses in 2008, being told everything is fine and we can never have another recession. And the other thing that they propagandize us with, and to bring it full circle back to the another point I wanted to make, was they always try teaching you in economics classes, a best way to get out of a recession or depression is war. But if you take a look at the data, it was actually, and thank you, Rainy Steps, for the super chat. What they do is they actually, when the troops came home after World War I and World War II, is when you saw the massive, explosion in GDP growth. It wasn't the war itself. That was destruction. It was when they came home and started spending money and making babies and putting actual productivity to good use. But now, that they've had abortion and everything, that does not make this even political, but you cannot have an entitlement-based economy that is built on having generations underneath you that are bigger to then be able to support in a Ponzi scheme like environment, which Social Security is. It's a Ponzi scheme. The money doesn't exist. There's IOUs in an office of the debt in West Virginia that is a filing cabinet. It's not even as bigger than the wall behind me. And that is what your Social Security is. It's pieces of paper in a filing cabinet in West Virginia is what everything is based on. Just the confidence, and not talking about this audience, but like the average person's ignorance out there is why this whole thing's allowed to go on. And that's why I thank you for being out here, and having the guts to expose all this stuff, Josh.
Yeah, well, some people have to, and luckily there are still some good people left in independent media working their butts off on a regular basis. I want to give a big shout out to Trina M, who sent $2.99 in the super chat. Big shout out to you. Thank you so much for that. You're awesome. As well as Rainy Steps, who sent Canadian $2.79 in the super chat. Always a great supporter, Rainy. Thank you so much. Says, wow, keep up the great work. Nerd glasses, thumbs up. I agree with the nerd glasses and thumbs up. And your entire statement, as a matter of fact. Thank you very much. And we got Romanian lose. That's a new currency that I've never seen come up in a super chat. But Chip Ryan sent 50 Romanian lose, which is about $11 US. Thank you so much for that as well. That goes a long way, and I really, truly appreciate the help that so many of you guys out there give to keep this stuff up and running, because honestly, we are doomed if we don't have the ability to break down these issues extensively and allow ourselves to keep calling out the evils. This is a battle of good versus evil after all, and we need to be the good. We need to be the change. We need to stop allowing these propaganda machines to crack down on our ability to spread free information. And they're taking down videos for talking about this. Again, like I said earlier, they took down one of my videos a few days ago for talking about inflation. And apparently it was considered or flagged inappropriate content, which is interesting because I sent it in for review, and a team of apparently 20 reviewers watched the video and then came back and confirmed that it was inappropriate content. So yeah, this is great. We're seeing that happen to London Real too right now, just for interviewing people. Whatever happened to, ABC and CNN interviewing Charles Manson? We better take them down because they must advocate what he's saying because they interviewed him. I mean, it's absurd. CNN was interviewing Osama bin Laden. Does that mean they support him? Well, they probably do, but does that mean they support him? They are colleagues with Osama bin Laden. I almost forgot about that. Anyway, I do want to go into another article here that I think is important to bring up in context here, Tim. As it says out of Zero Hedge, the real COVID-19 mortality rate is 25 to 60 times less than governments, media claims. And as the article goes into the research issued by the Bonn University Hospital, and made by the group of scientists, including Professor D. Hendrik Streeck, Institute of Virology, Professor D. Gunther Hartmann, Institute of Clinical Chemistry and Clinical Pharmacology, spokesman for the Cluster of Excellence Immunosensation 2, there's a name, and Professor Dr. Martin Exner, Institute for Hygiene and Public Health, Professor Dr. Matthias Schmid, Institute for Medical Biometry and Computer Science and Epidemiology. In the framework of the research, all residents of Germany's Gangelt were tested on the existence of SARS-CoV-2 infection and antibodies for SARS-CoV-2. Gangelt is one of the most COVID-19 affected German municipalities. It is believed that the outbreak was caused by the carnival held on February 15th, 2020. After the event, several people tested positive for SARS-CoV-2. Preliminary results, the existing immunity was determined at about 14%. About 2% of the people had current SARS-CoV-2 infection detected by the method of a polymerase chain reaction. The overall infection rate, the presence of a current infection or antibody in the body, was about 15%. The mortality rate, based on the total number of infected people in the Gangelt community, is approximately 0.37% based on the preliminary data of the study. The mortality rate based on the total population of the Gangelt is currently 0.06%. And this really brings to questions a lot of things, and it goes into this way deeper, and I'm obviously not going to read the whole study. It would take 10 hours, but hey, look, here's the thing. The original numbers, the preliminary numbers that came out of China were based in them not counting every coronavirus case, but counting every death. And then it made it look like the numbers were much bigger and way more people died per capita than actually did. So this is an issue because then everyone was panicking in the U.S. China got back up and working while the U.S. was collapsing. The whole global economy was collapsing. And they said the numbers could be anywhere from 3 to 7% death rate. Now we know that's not true. And on top of that, we found out recently out of places like LA that there could have been hundreds of thousands more people with coronavirus end of last year, early this year, which puts the death rate down so dramatically that it could be as low as 0.08%, which is a 0.02% difference from the flu season. And again, I said from the beginning, it could be very dangerous based on the numbers, but the numbers change. You go with the facts and you go with the flow, folks. And the facts say it isn't as dangerous as they said. And as I said in a video about a week and a half ago, what happens when everyone realizes this? How will people react when they realize the economy is collapsing because, well, as a catalyst anyway, but partially because of this insanity? And that leads me to the next article here, which is interesting. Out of Zero Hedge, Bank of America throws in the towel, downgrades Tesla days after Morgan Stanley downgrade. Okay, but what about Bank of America? Bank of America is essentially bankrupt. What about JP Morgan? What about Morgan Stanley? What about all these major banks that have no cash, but just a huge amount of the deposits that they're telling people to not take out of the bank? What about them themselves saying we're entering into a global depression?
Or you might have coronavirus on your cash, so you can't take your cash out of the bank.
Yeah, you can't touch that cash. You can't, which makes no sense. Half the time it's crisp bills because they take bills out of circulation quite often, and it's usually not as bad as you think it might be as far as money goes. But they want to go cashless. How do you think they're going to utilize a banking crisis in order to go cashless? I mean, it seems convenient for them because they could just say, don't take your money out of the bank, you'll die, and we'll carefully switch you over into the system where we track every second and you can't take your money out of the bank, and we could bail it in if we want.
Well, I mean, I sort of already touched on this earlier where things are going with the digital dollar. We've already seen Rashid Tlaib,
right.
Put that in. But, eventually, that's where everything is going, is to a digital dollar type system, which is why, and I do want to address, a very important issue where this is a question. If there's one question I get more than anything, it's, how can you promote Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies when this is going to be used as like the mark of the beast, and you guys are idiots, and there's going to be EMPs, and this is, you can't do that. And so believe me, that's like one of the very first things I thought about is, and why I didn't get involved into Bitcoin as early as I could have is because I thought that it could be used as a mark of the beast type system, and it can, because everything is tracked, traced, surveilled. However, there's other cryptos out there, and this is not to make a big commercial about cryptocurrencies, but I just want to say where I want to present the solution to everybody. So if you have other cryptos that can't be tracked, traced, and surveilled, and everything is going digital, almost everything already is digital. It's like 97%. Now with all this new trillions of dollars is probably closer to 98%. Anyways, everything already is all digital. The game plan is to have a digital dollar. There's a congressional bill right now, the second time they put that bill out in the last month and a half, and you're going to get universal basic income. It's going to come through your Federal Reserve digital wallet. That's literally in the bill. It's a Fed account is what they're calling it. And it's funny because guys like Ernest Hancock have been calling it a FederalReserve.gov coin for like 5 or 6 years. And so now, since like 2014, I've been hearing him talk about this. And so now here it is. I mean, they're going to launch the FederalReserve.gov coin. Literally, the new head of the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, the OCC, is the former Coinbase chief legal officer. He started this month, so April 1st. Big April Fool's joke. Yeah, and so don't even get me started into Ripple. And so where this is going is you're going to have a government issued, basically, let's call it a crypto, except it's not going to be on a decentralized ledger. It's not going to be open to the public. Even what's his name? Jerome Powell, I believe in January, was pressed about this before we were in a financial crisis. And he was saying, yeah, we are looking into doing this. I mean, if you go to the
Bank of Canada is doing that as well. They released papers a couple months ago, as well as last year, talking about to combat Bitcoin, to stop the freedom of decentralization. We must put out our own centrally planned cryptocurrency. They said that themselves in their own documents, and that's out in the public for anyone to read on the Bank of Canada's website.
Yeah, Bank of International Settlements, and this is a good book that I'm halfway through, Tower of Basel, that I was halfway through it, and then as soon as we got back from Anarcho, the world collapsed, and then I stopped reading it. But but you actually have the Bank of International Settlements that sits above the Federal Reserve, sits above all the other central banks, but it's comprised of the central banks, and it's its own country, like the Vatican. And so it's sovereign territory in Basel, Switzerland, that no one can go invade them. It's its own. They have have, diplomatic immunity. During World War II, they, like, I think the second or third guy in command would, and this is going to be taken out of context later on, but they would, sign everything as Heil Hitler. And literally the person that was in charge of it at the time was an American named Thomas Picciott, who then I think went on to go work for JP Morgan. And so we as the American government was funding the Bank of National Settlements, which at the time in World War II had over 80% of their income coming from the Reichsbank, aka the Nazis, after they would get their gold, and they'd pay their interest in gold, and they get their gold from, melting down, the gold fillings of Jews. But, you're not even allowed to talk about this stuff anymore. But now they have something called the special drawing right that they use as their unit of account. And so the game plan was to have basically Libra which is a video that I put out on your channel last June, doing a walk and talk with my dog, saying that the Libra would probably be based off the special drawing right. I was channeling my inner Jeff Berwick, and but I put that out the day before they released their white paper, and it was almost exactly down to a T is what the Libra was. But the thing is, the Libra got too far ahead of itself. They got too big for their britches. And so the game plan is to have a digital dollar. Maybe all the other countries, maybe you still have a euro. I don't know. That's a lot less likely, but you still have, or maybe they bring back the regional, the country specific currencies. And then what will then happen from there is that's then tied up into this global special drawing right. It's all digital, and so you're gonna get your $2,000 a month, and then eventually they're gonna keep ratcheting up the the heat over here, and they're gonna take away incentives. They're gonna socially engineer people to get this, and then once they get enough people into it, they suck you in. Like, just think of like YouTube, or Facebook, or any of these other platforms. Like, we're just an open town hall, and anyone can come here, anyone can say whatever they want, and they suck everybody in. And as soon as they suck everybody in, they basically say, oh well, you're not getting enough news from CNN and MSNBC. And Snopes says that this is wrong, so therefore we need to go shut you down. So this is what it's going to do. They're just going to suck everybody in. But believe me, it's a lot easier to be
By the way, sorry to cut in there for a second, but Snopes saying things are wrong is quite comical at this point, considering, first of all, they were tied in with WikiLeaks to the Clinton campaign. Second, they said a couple months ago that anyone that says that there's any connection between HIV and coronavirus is wrong, and is following right-wing conspiracy theories online. Yet the recent hacks show that at least they were talking about it being a strain of that being bioengineered with HIV from bats. And same with the Wuhan Institute of Virology being funded by the U.S. government. They said that was wrong until they announced, the U.S. government said, yes, actually, we did fund them for $3.7 million. It's funny how often things turn around on Snopes. Why anyone listens to them or PolitiFact amazes me at this point.
Yeah, and I just like how I think one of the best ways to judge a person's character, like what wavelength they're on. If they send me something said, oh well, Snopes said this, I'm like, oh well, then automatically everything you say, I'm never really going to take again with any sort
calling
of
out Luke. Luke sent me a Snopes article recently. Anyway, so I do want to go into some of this stuff further because if we bring up the Dow, I'm not sure if you have it ready, but I do want to mention something funny about the Dow today. Okay. So the Dow went up 1.99% on the day, 456.94 points. And all of these mainstream propaganda articles are coming out going, U.S. stocks recover some of the week's losses, keyword some. It was just funny, at the very end of the day, we saw it fall at a pretty fast pace just as the bell rang. And that's it for the day. And I'm going to be interested in seeing how that works out tomorrow, because I don't believe we're at the end of the rope yet, even close for the Dow. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, Tim. Like, how far do you think it will fall? I know you've talked about this before, but it would be good to, for those that haven't heard you talk about this issue yet on our channel, how far you think the Dow is going to end up falling.
First off, I just want to point out that the Dow is a stupid thing to measure, and I know that it's the main thing that everybody talks about. So I'm not saying that you're stupid or anyone that's watching this. It's just there's something called a price weighted average, and then there's market weighted average. And so let's say you have one stock that's $10, another stock that's $100, and they both go up $1. In the Dow, they'd both go up 1 point, even though one would represent a lot greater percentage of the company than the other, and then one would be doubling, one would only be going up 10%. Now in the S&P, It works like the actual market weighted average. So it's a much better way to gauge what's going on. I almost made a mistake and said the economy, because that's not a good gauge of what's going on in the economy, but a good gauge of what's going on in the financial markets in terms of, all this free money that's going back and forth. But I originally thought that, you'd see the dollar, at least get down to 15. And now that was trying to factor in, different government intervention. And again, this is before we knew that there's going to be a $6 trillion, BS thing that they're pushing through. And then I thought, absent any of this, I told my dad on the phone the other day, I thought it'd be, closer to 8,000, no like real scientific, again, the actual analysts have no idea what they're talking about. So, I take what I say over them any day. But, for me and my clients, it doesn't really even matter, because what we did is, and you and I did a video, if you guys go back, to it was February 15th or something. I think we put it out maybe on the 19th before all this went down. And I said I was super confident in my investment strategy. And people are like, oh, this guy's just talking about his investment strategy. Yeah, I'm talking about something that would have saved people a lot of money and saved people from killing themselves or having their retirement or, losing their house or losing their families. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry that I was talking about this stuff. And so by having the strategy that we knew, I was very confident that we were in a gigantic bubble. I think everyone watching this is very confident that we were in a gigantic bubble and probably still in a big bubble. And I knew that there was a good chance the bubble could keep going just because of, it shouldn't have been as big as it was to begin with. And everyone, things always in the late stages, late stage manias, you can't really predict what it's going to do in a late stage. Right. And so, but you also can't predict when, like if you're a turkey, one day it's going to be Thanksgiving, but every other day it doesn't matter. So one day it's Thanksgiving and boom, off with your head.
If I was a turkey, I would be quite sure that the whole reason for my existence was probably to get beheaded and eaten, and which is why I do not want to be a turkey. So be good in life. You might get reincarnated, folks. So just remember, be good to people.
And don't be a sheep either. So we came up with a way where if the market were to collapse, then we would have put options that would then come into play. We almost did it at January 15th when we put it on. So okay, put it on a tiny bit too early, but not getting greedy over here. And so our clients only went down 3.5%. But now going forward, this is going to be a lot. And I wouldn't even say going forward. I mean going forward from this moment in time. Not trying to imply that the market is just going to be going straight up. Because if you're with somebody that had no idea what they were doing on the way down and said, oh, just buy it. This is just a little snowstorm. Ben Bernanke and CNBC told me everything is great. They're not going to know how to play this going back up. They're probably not in gold and silver. They're probably not in crypto. Right. And you can actually put part of your retirement into crypto. I'm not saying put all of it, but you could put, a few percentage in if you want to, hold in the private key. Same with gold. And so a lot of people are going to get shellacked by what's coming. I think there's still a lot more downside. But then again, the X factor is, the Fed decides that we're going to print another $10 trillion, then that's not going to be enough. And then we got to print 20 trillion, and that's not going to be enough. So we introduce a bill to print, to make 50 platinum coins and then use that for universal basic income. I don't want to give them any ideas because, this is just craziness. But, we did see gold or oil go to zero before Bitcoin. And Bitcoin and gold rather could go up for the exact same reason, because with oil, it was a big hot potato because you had people who are trading these future contracts. So people think I'm going to get paid to get gas. Well, that's not what's really happening. You've got to buy 1,000 contracts, which is something like 32 or 42,000 gallons of oil at once. So it's not like you can just store it in your 700 square foot apartment in New York City. And then from there, what's going on is that, as the prices was getting very low and we saw this rapid, decline the other day, all of a sudden people are like, oh crap, we're getting close to expiration and I can't take this delivery. I've got nowhere to store it. And people are like, oh, well, I can't take delivery. I can't take it. But now it's going to be the opposite with gold, where it's like, right. Wait a minute. I want to take delivery, but nobody wants to sell their gold for delivery. So you can see the exact opposite thing happen potentially, not financial advice, but right. I think that is a lot more likely. I mean, it's just.
I do want to break away for a second, Tim, because I'm watching us get shadow banned live right now, and I'm not sure if anyone could see this on the screen. I'm going to try and show it to you guys in the best possible way here. But this is our viewership on this video today. It went up and flatlined according to YouTube. So apparently for the last hour, we have not gotten any viewers on this video. It's just been zero. And this is the kind of shenanigans we get all the time here at WHAM, which is why it's important for you guys to hit the like button and share and download this video, because we have risked a lot by doing this video today, talking about the hacks, because YouTube says, according to their new community guidelines, that we cannot do that. So just wanted to give you guys a glimpse, a real-time glimpse into our analytics. I just took that picture right off the screen.
Do you mean hacks? Do you mean hacks or the people at YouTube, or do you mean like the journalists
Both.
at CNBC?
You know, there's almost, yeah, it's English is an interesting language. The Erie Fairy sent $5 in the super chat. It says, much love. Thank you so much to you as well. And I really appreciate those super chats. They go a long way and they keep us alive. And again, we are doomed when it comes to posting videos in the next short term because of talking about these things, because we want to be honest with you and bring you the information you guys need. And YouTube does not want that anymore because they are actually listening to the World Health Organization when it comes to information right now and what can and cannot be said. And they are actually basing their community guidelines on a global government.
No vitamin C. They literally, the head of YouTube said they're going to take down people that recommend vitamin C. So whatever you do not take vitamin C.
One of the most obvious forms of creating good immunity in the world. I mean, think about that for a second. And we have a lot of comments coming in. I want to get to a couple of them. Magic Monkey Love says we can have a new golden age if we wanted. I believe that you are right in that. And obviously, Dr. Mike says, thank you guys. Thank you very much for watching. Loda Escoto says, investigate Bill Gates. By the way, if you haven't already, hit the like button on this video. Check the links below, and there are ways for you to find us on COINTREE, which we have a link to, which will bring you to all of our Bitcoin addresses, crypto addresses, Monero. If you want to donate Monero, you can go to that. We also have a bunch of our social media set up there, and join our new newsletter at www.iamband.com. We need you guys to do this. We need you guys to do this so that we can keep track of being able to bring you guys information when they take down this YouTube channel. It's shocking they haven't already. I did see one message to me. Julie Bott says, Josh, will you mention what it is like in Mexico? Some reports say it's bad there now. Is it true? It depends where in Mexico you are. I'm in Puerto Vallarta in Jalisco. Jalisco obviously has been very CIA oriented with this whole thing, yet it's still one of the most free places in the world because people aren't listening. So they say mandatory lockdown. You cannot walk outside here and you can't go anywhere without a mask. Meanwhile, restaurants are open. People are walking around without masks. Lots of people walking outside, and the cases are extraordinarily low. So I wouldn't say it's super bad here right now. I actually say it's a pretty good place to be, and I feel very happy to be here. The reason I'm here is because I left the U.S. due to the potential food wars, martial law, economic collapse, and how individuals react to such a thing in such a place. And here, people are very self-sustainable, and I knew this was a good move. So I left everything behind and came here. It's like $400 a month to be here, by the way. And it just happens, my Airbnb happens to have this on the wall behind me. So definitely interesting. It's got a glare right now, but nonetheless. We got more questions coming in here. Let's see. Ricky the Hopeful Volunteer says, oh man, I'm really late. Dang it. Hey, Josh and Tim. Well, hey, better late than never, Rika. Thanks for joining us. Pete Kingston says, Trudeau is a scumbag. I would certainly agree with that. And let's see, we got... I'm not going to write... so Loda Escoto says, Snopes means penis in Swedish. This is not good to know, but I appreciate the information nonetheless. I will not be using that anytime soon, but that's an interesting factoid. Magic Monkey Love says, got to send us troops overseas before blackouts and roundups. Yeah, right. Let's see. We got another super chat somewhere. I saw it on the screen, but I can't find it. So I'm not sure where to go for that. But it looks like Crypto Crackhead sent £2 in the super chat. Thank you so much. I don't know if you wrote a message with it. I can't find it. Oh, there it is. And put a thumbs up. Thank you very much, Crypto Crackhead. And it looks like we just got another super chat from Dr. Mike and says, what happens to the economy when the petrodollar collapses? And see, I think there's going to be a lot of compensation, especially in a place like Canada. What do you think, Tim? What happens when the petrodollar collapses?
Well, I mean, it's not going to be good news pretty much for anybody. Well, maybe good news, people hold on to Bitcoin and gold and silver and maybe some lead as well. But, you know, it's probably not going to happen, you know, tomorrow. It's going to happen. It's going to take, you know, a long time for this to eventually play out. And I feel like I'm about to sneeze. It's not coronavirus coming up. And now that
Isn't that the greatest thing on video?
I'm live and I'm like trying to go to the other screen, and now I didn't even have to sneeze, so I just willed that away somehow. But yeah, with the petrodollar collapsing, it's be like a sneeze, boom, it's all in 1 second. But this thing can unravel pretty quickly, and so with America now, the attitudes of guys like Donald Trump and Steve Mnuchin is like, oh well, this is the best time to start taking on more debt, and we can now have 50 and 100-year bonds, and let's go start doing all these infrastructure plays. Well, that's only a thing because people are still willing to lend this money, or people still have confidence in this entire system. But confidence can be eroded very quickly, as we saw what happened into the oil markets. And so I forgot what the original question was because of the whole sneeze thing, but
the fall of the petrodollar, I don't know. I think this is a question a lot of people have been asking since we saw oil go into negative $37.53. But the question is, what happens to the economy when the petrodollar collapses?
Well, when it collapses, go back to Germany, Weimar Germany in early 1900s. They had several different currencies. The first one was the gold mark, then the Ren mark, then the Reichsmark, then the Deutschmark, then now obviously the euro. And so if you were to have fixed assets like bonds or the cash at the time, which was the gold mark, that was eventually hyperinflated away to nothing. But if you had something like gold and silver, instead of having your gold and silver priced in gold marks, it would now be priced in Ren marks and Reichsmarks and Deutschmarks. If you bought Mercedes-Benz stock at the time, instead of being priced in, let's say you had 100 shares priced in gold mark, and then gold mark collapses now because of maybe dividends and interest, maybe now you have 104 shares that are now priced in Ren mark, and then Ren mark collapses, then now maybe you have a few more priced in Reichsmark. And so this when it happens, can happen quickly. I believe the stock market in Germany around 1911 was about anywhere from 100 to 400. And then by 1921, 1922, it was 22 million. And then a year later, it was 27 million. But it didn't mean that things were going great. It was just one way to, keep on to some of your purchasing power. And so people who are trying to be, really safe, and I'll say this in air quotes, by being safe, they're going to try to be safe in things like cash, which is good to be temporarily. And this is one of the reasons I was, pimping my strategy so hard and telling everybody so hard about it, because on a long enough time horizon, staying in cash is going broke safely. And so, what's going to happen is I think financial assets will eventually hyperinflate and go through the roof. Obviously, not all of them. But unfortunately, if you're, 55 to 65 and you just retired or just about to retire, and all of a sudden your assets go down 50% or 80%, or you kept it in cash and the assets you could have been go up, hundreds of percent or thousands of percent, and you've been left behind, which is another great fear out there. Maybe not a fear that people appreciate enough, then you risk being left behind. So I think that financial assets will go up. Look at the playbook. They, before they, tried to help people out from a health, not that I want the government's help, trying to help me out with it, say that in air quotes too, but they prioritize helping Wall Street before they tried even doing anything with antibody tests or anything like that. So, this is, when it unravels, it can unravel very, very quickly. And that is just phenomenal. That's the reverse hockey stick. I got, talk about flattening the curve. This
is our video today, guys. If you aren't aware, this is according to YouTube analytics. It has not gotten a single view in 45 minutes according to YouTube. We are flatlining for 45 minutes, and we're supposed to believe that. This is why I needed to show you guys this, because this just tells you how badly we are truly being shadow banned here. That's literally, it doesn't make any sense. For 45 minutes, we've just got no views. What about you guys? How many of you have tuned in the last 45 minutes? I'm pretty sure you guys were viewers, right? Well, according to YouTube, you don't exist. I just figured it would be a good time to do this live while we're talking here, because it says everything you need to know about the shadow banning we're dealing with, which is exactly why we need you guys to hit that like button and share this on social media and download this video, because it'll probably be deleted by the looks of it. They seem to be heading in that direction. Those super chats go a long way, and it's just so ridiculous. Are we supposed to take this seriously? Are we supposed to believe that 0 people have watched this video in the last 45 minutes? Ross B. Reefin says hand raise. Susie Wood says me. Xerxes 5150 says lol, guess we don't count, or guess we here don't count. Yeah, I know. Tara Rise 07 says 326 watching, 320 likes. Nice. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so crazy.
But it's a pretty
Says,
insane.
glad
Yeah,
someone
it's pretty
is talking
insane
about the hacks.
Yeah, I mean, pretty insane numbers. I mean, so thank you everyone who's liked and watched, mainly because of you, not probably because of my rambling, but
Well, no,
it's
I
very
mean,
good.
for a multitude of reasons, because the whole idea is that we're trying to come at it from Tim and I come from very different places, but we have the same ideas as far as, a free society that's educated and has the truth in their hands at their fingertips, which everyone deserves when we have. I mean, Tim is actually sacrificing a lot to do this. He has a business to run and he's focusing so much on this stuff. And I think it's important that we talk about, we have that fluctuation. It's the same thing we've had for years with John Sneisen and stuff too. It's that we have this fluctuation between ideas and backgrounds and expertise. And I think that's what is important, to bring that all together in a way that we haven't seen on mainstream media. I don't even know if we've ever seen that on mainstream media. So, by the way, big shout out to Chester Wolf, the Griffin, who sent another $5 in the super chat and says, apparently the 380 people in chat right now don't exist. Yeah, I know. Exactly. This is a reality of YouTube. Shadow banning. King D13 says 329 like it. Will show how many watched it. It's just, again, if you haven't seen this, if you weren't looking at the moment, I'm going to bring it up for you guys to look at one more time here before we go. This is, according to YouTube, this is our viewership in the last over 45 minutes. If it focuses here, there we go. This is the last 45 minutes of this video, according to YouTube analytics. We have gotten 0 views, according to them. We just flatlined for 45 minutes, no views. Oh, man, this is why we need you guys to help us out in any way we can. People always say I'm BSing when I talk about the shadow banning. No, this is a reality that we have to deal with. And again, remember, we have 317 people watching right now, allegedly by YouTube, which is great. But at the same time, that's out of 140,000 people. By the way, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and get your friends to subscribe, because we are almost at 140,000 subscribers. And it would be nice to do that before the end of April, because we used to get 12,000 new subscribers a month. And then overnight, after I interviewed David Icke about a year and a half ago, they just decided, no, you don't get subscribers anymore. And I've moved, I think, 10,000 in the last year, very, very slowly. I think actually less than that. So 7,000 in the last year. Linda Cianchetti says, can I still leave for Mexico? There are ways, but I wouldn't advocate it. But there are ways. It's not, I don't think it's legal. My dad says, keep the thanks blurb to the side, not over your faces. I don't think it records in the finished video. It's just live that pops up. Let's see. We got a few people commenting here.
Yeah, the other
comment.
problem, Rob, is that it's different from when I do it from when we have the stacked view. So if I make it so it's not over our faces and we're both side by side, then it's different than when if we make it then when we're just spotlighted on the speaker. So, and the other problem is I can only test it out while we're live. So it's but the good thing is
you have to get the super chats in order to be able to test it. Oh, we got another super chat from Lycan Warrior, who sent $5 in the super chat. Thanks so much to you. Seriously, a big shout out to you. Big thank you to you. A lot of channels, as I said, a lot of channels I follow have been complaining about the shadow banning lately as well. It is real and legit. And yeah, we've been witnessing it for a long time incrementally, but it's so over the top right now that like nobody can possibly say this is a conspiracy theory anymore. It's right in our faces, and they've demonetized me almost to death. I'm still monetized, but barely. And it's almost the only money I make is seriously coming from these super chats and Patreon, Subscribestar, and GoFundMe, and crypto as well. But it's not enough to stay alive. I can guarantee you that. So I really appreciate all of you guys helping out.
I mean, if you want to see what went on with me and on Facebook in 2016, I only had like a 2-month really run. I started my page August 27th. I mean, no one really following it till October. So October, November, getting huge numbers, like getting more than like Ben Shapiro. And so we go onto the screen right now. And what you'll see, here is that I was going from
Pornhub.
Pornhub. Yeah, I went from 1,200 subscribers a day to literally flatlined negative between now. Like I have less subscribers today than when I was 3 months into my channel and nobody knew me. So if I go live, like we're going live right now, and there's probably like 4 people watching on my Liberty Advisor page and probably like 2 people on the other page. So it's, I mean, on what I do on that day. So if you go back on that day, so you see that that's like November 16th, November 17th. I had something called a fake news list. The only thing it was called was fake news list. Go viral. Got tracked back from my page from stealing it from the left, the fake left, and they have punished me by now unless it's a meme, I cannot reach anybody out there. But it's almost like a badge of honor of like, okay, you had to do it to little old me in the span of 3 months. But then I started trying to make my own videos, and like, oh yeah, what a great time to start making videos. November 2016. So worst time. And that's why I'm on Wham right now, because I'm like, the odds of trying to grow your own channel is about slim to none.
Well, I do want to do a quick recap before we finish this off, just bouncing through from the first article to one of the, I'll play by ear here, but just to that MSN article at the beginning that I mentioned, nearly 25,000 email addresses and passwords were allegedly from NIH, can't talk right now, WHO, Gates Foundation, and others are dumped online. The next article there said, from Live Mint, did the data of the WHO, Wuhan Institute of Virology, Gates Foundation get hacked? Next article was from Zero Hedge, which said email addresses and passwords from WHO, NIH, Wuhan Lab, and Gates Foundation dumped on 4chan. Going on to this next one from Fast Company that says Gates Foundation WHO hacks are part of growing wave of attacks on science and health officials. I don't think that's what, I think it's more on government officials and tyrannical Nazis. But speaking of Nazis, this next one out of Vice said neo-Nazis are spreading a list of emails and passwords for Gates Foundation and WHO employees. So apparently if you have any questions at all, you're a Nazi or you're a Russian or whatever.
And meanwhile, we were funding actual neo-Nazis in Ukraine to overthrow their democratically elected government to then remove a Russian-friendly president.
Yeah, well, the U.S. government literally propped up Hitler against a communist. And then you jump to the next article. It's out of Zero Hedge that says Pompeo says multiple labs in China and not just Wuhan must be investigated for COVID-19 origins. The government itself, the State Department, the Department of Defense are all confirming what we were saying back in January, February, March, April, things that we were attacked on, demonetized on, shadow banned on. It's all come to fruition now, and we are still being hit hard and being told that we're crazy right-wing conspiracy theorists, and we're not right-wingers, we're not left-wingers, we're just individuals that believe in humanity, the freedoms of individuals, and the truth in information that is so important now more than ever. And it's really, really frustrating to see the perpetuation of subservience with all this. And again, with these hacks, essentially, the evidence is that there were hacks, but how much of them are legit? How much of them are new? Are they actually released by these organizations themselves in order to make it look like this information is real when it's just a limited hangout to stop us from learning the whole truth? There's a lot of evidence that it's a trap where they put up these links and you go there, you get malware. So they're trying to stop people from looking into it. There's a lot of fake screenshots going up and around. But one thing we do know that seems to be apparent is people at the Gates Foundation have satanic emails like Lucifer 13, good old Margaret at the Gates Foundation. And then we also have evidence that it was bioengineered in a lab and possibly spliced with HIV, which was theorized back in January by people, and people got attacked for talking about. And again, we have more evidence that the governments around the world spread it on purpose to cause the world to drop to their knees and enforce Real ID 2020 and force vaccinations, technocracy, cashless society, and social credit. While the global economy collapses, people get desperate, dependent, and beg for help from the government that created the problem in the first place. Again, I appreciate everyone watching today. Make sure to hit that like button, check those links below. Join our new newsletter at www.iambanned.com. Put in your email there. It'll help us a lot when we get taken down, as well as float.app, flote.app. You can become a client of Tim Picciott at thelibertyadvisor.com. And we, of course, are on COINTREE, which is linked below. Our friend Naomi Brockwell made me aware of it recently, and it is definitely a good place to organize all of our crypto addresses that you could tip to. Many different altcoins, Monero, etc. if you're worried about being tied to me, tipping me. And there's also a bunch of our social medias are linked there too. I really appreciate everyone joining us today. Make sure to hit that like button, share on social media. Again, as I mentioned before, and I'll show you the image again on the screen here. According to YouTube, we haven't had any views in about 50 something minutes now, and we've been flatlining. This is shadow banning. This is why we need you guys more than ever to help pump out this information. Download this video. It'll probably be taken down. I really appreciate you joining us again, Tim. We'll be getting back at all of you guys with much more very shortly. You guys are all awesome. Until next time, you have any final words, Tim? Sneezes?
No, luckily I did get those out during the break. So luckily it was a very opportune time to sneeze. But thank you everybody for watching and for all the love. If you guys want to check out my channel, I've been making some comments on Liberty Advisor. And one of the last things I'm going to leave people with is that we could tease him for next time. McConnell says he favors allowing states to declare bankruptcy. So I know on this channel that's quite the sexy topic everybody likes to talk about, but we don't have time today. I got to get back to some real work. But if you
bankruptcy.
But if you want to do so right now I am taking the calls that are coming in and the consultations very, very shortly. Actually talking with people right now who one of the people that might be taking those calls coming in. So if you want to have your portfolio reviewed, maybe look to see how you can get some gold or silver or Bitcoin or crypto into your portfolio, or how you can look into some of these put options type strategies and inquire how we had the performance that we had and how we got most of the gains last year and almost none of the losses this year. I'd love to be able to do that, because that is how we fund ourselves. So the only way I can keep doing this is if we're making money from doing it, not to try to sound selfish, but that is how the world works. Like, nobody would be doing something and taking away from the work if it wasn't working. So it's just a value exchange. Really appreciate the opportunity and for everyone's love out there. But that's no, we'll tease him for next time. For McConnell says he favors allowing states to declare bankruptcy. So
people listen to McConnell. Anyway, I appreciate you joining us, Tim. I appreciate all of you guys joining us again. One more time, hit that like button if you haven't already. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdsson with Tim Picciott signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.